Hey everyone! So my last video received an overwhelming dissatisfaction in the popping noise that I was using as the sound effect in the background of the video. I'd like to clarify that in the process of messing with the editing and having a new microphone, that I inadvertently turned up the sound effect noise. So to resolve that issue, I opted for a new noise. So you guys will now be graced with this wonderful boing noise. Let me guess. Not happy? Well, good news, I'm not going to have any sound effects this video. I'm going to try one, see how it goes, see if I like the way it sounds, and if I do, then I'll just leave them out going forward, but if I don't, maybe I can take some requests from you guys as to what you think would make it sound better, but for the time being, we're just going to stick with me for this video. So let's get started. Today I want to cover Neo. Over the summer, when I was on vacation with my family, which I distinctly remember because I was checking my computer a lot, Neo went on a pretty serious bull run. There was a giant increase in price. Everybody was talking about it. During that time, I really didn't give it much thought, but it's one of those projects that I didn't know a lot about, so that's the reason I decided to go over it. Let's start with a little bit of project history. So some of you might know, but some of you also may not, it was originally started as AntShares in 2014. And then in August of 2016, it was rebranded as Neo. The name is Greek and it translates to new, novelty, or youth. Some of you may actually also know it by Chinese Ethereum, which is its other very popular nickname. Neo was developed by a company called Onchain, and it's based out of Shanghai. Da Hongfei, which is the creator of Neo, is also the CEO of Onchain. It held its first ICO in October 2015, where it sold about 17.5 million Neo tokens and raised approximately $550,000 in US dollars. The Neo token launched at just 3 cents in 2015, and at that time it was trading under the ticker ANS. A year later, in September 2016, Neo held a second crowd sale to help fund more development. During its second coin offering, Neo sold 22.5 million tokens, which ended up being 4.5 million in US dollars. It was extremely popular because it hit a number of firsts. It was the first open source blockchain developed out of China. It was the first blockchain to allow refunds, and it was the first Chinese ICO in which more than 50% of its participants were coming from outside China. Let's talk about the distribution of Neo and Gas. So Neo and Gas are the two tokens that power the Neo blockchain. They are both capped at 100 million tokens each. Neo tokens give voting rights, and they pay in dividends, which are gas. And gas is used to pay for transaction fees and for system fees. They would be used for when you're deploying or invoking a smart contract. The smallest denomination of Neo you can have is 1 Neo. I found that out in a very aggravating way when I was trying to transfer Neo off the exchange, and I realized I couldn't transfer 1 because I had to pay for the transaction fee, so I had to buy 2. It left me with leftover Neo in the exchange, and I wasn't very excited about that. The good news, however, is that gas is divisible. Gas is generated when a new block is formed, about 8 gas per block, and the intervals of creations of the block are about 15 to 20 seconds. An annual reduction of 1 gas per block per year is taking place, and it will continue to do that until it trends down to the point where it's only 1 gas per block. At this ratio, it's going to take 22 years to fully generate all 100 million gas tokens. A nice perk is the annual gas staking, which is 5.5% a year. But the best part is that the fact that the gas can be claimed without the wallet needing to be on or running. Next up is technology. Neo runs on a specifically designed delegated proof-of-stake consensus protocol, and it's called the Delegated Byzantine Fault Tolerance, or DBFT for short. That is a mouthful. Neo touts that it offers lower electricity costs, and it removes the possibility of a chain split or a forking scenario. Like most proof-of-stake coins, anybody that holds Neo can vote on who they want to be their consensus node, and it's that node's responsibility on deciding a block. Users are responsible for telling the nodes their transactions, and the nodes are responsible for keeping track of those and putting them on the ledger, which eventually turns into a block. Then when it comes time to verify a block, our node is randomly chosen to propose his block. That node is responsible for sending their block to all the other nodes on the blockchain, and those nodes have to decide whether or not their nodes matches the original, and if it does, then they will come to consensus. If at least 66% of the nodes on the blockchain agree that the block is valid, then it will become part of the network. If less than 66 nodes are in agreement, then there is a new block that is randomly selected, and the whole process starts over again. Neo claims to be able to handle 1,000 transactions per second, with the goal of optimizing to be able to handle over 10,000 transactions per second. Recently at the Neo DevCon in San Francisco, Da Hongfei revealed that they are trying to get Neo to be able to scale to 100,000 transactions per second by 2020. And they're planning on doing this without incorporating any off-chain solutions or sharding. There's a cool little website where you can look at the Neo network and track block time. The last time I checked, it was 24 seconds. I'll put the link in the description. They have desktop wallets for Macs, Linux, and Windows, but there's also the capability of running the wallet on the Nano S or the Nano Blue, as long as you're running it with the Neon wallet, and in which case you can stake gas that way too. On to major components and use cases. A big one is superconducting transactions. In simple terms, it's the ability for two users to exchange cryptocurrencies from different blockchains in an entirely trustless manner, without smart contracts. Each user agrees to the terms prior to the transaction, and then they both use their private keys separately to sign a copy of the transaction itself. Next up is Neo smart contracts, or what's called Neo contracts. And this is really important, because unlike with Ethereum, where the developers have to learn Solidity, which is an entirely new language, can take time and can be a barrier, with Neo, developers don't have to do that because you can use C#, Java, or Python to write on Neo, and that removes a bunch of barriers and can make it much faster for people right out of the gate to start developing on the blockchain. Digital assets. Neo aims to convert traditional assets into digital ones by utilizing smart contracts. These digital assets will be decentralized, and they'll be protected by law by using digital certificates on the blockchain. dApps. Neo supports the creation of decentralized applications. After all, it is a platform. Digital identity. Neo will enable the creation of identity information of companies, entities, and individuals in a digital form. On to pros. So I'm not a developer, obviously, but I know enough to know that if you don't have to learn a new language or learn an entirely new skill to start building on a platform, that you're going to be able to build faster. So that's definitely a pro for Neo, that there's no barrier as far as software development will go. This is going to increase the speed at which applications and other things can be created, and the size of the ecosystem should grow. Also, more usage of Neo means more demand for Neo and more demand for gas, which ideally should make the price of both of those increase. Another pro for me is their consensus protocol. Although I just scratched the surface and it's extremely detailed and tech-oriented, I like the idea that they tried to come up with something entirely new and different to try to solve the problems that we face with Bitcoin and other normal cryptocurrencies. Developers is also another pro because there's 3 very large groups that are actively working on development for the Neo platform. Those are Neo Council, the City of Zion, and Econolab. On to the cons. Some articles I read were very pro-Neo, and they felt that way because they were under the impression that China was backing Neo as a cryptocurrency. That's not the case, but I'd like to be clear that there are no governments backing any cryptocurrencies right now, so that's not necessarily Neo's fault. However, China has been cracking down on the ability for companies to run and participate in ICOs, which could put a damper a little bit on Neo considering it is a platform, and part of what they're made for is for people to build and create ICOs on the Neo blockchain. Another common misconception is that there's a formal Microsoft partnership. And that's not the case either. They are supporting Neo because they will be using the .NET framework, and they are also sponsoring the Neo development competition, but there is no formal partnership. At the moment, Neo unfortunately is a centralized currency. All of the active nodes are being managed by the Neo Council. Decentralization is in progress though. Soon, however, Neo holders will be able to vote for nodes, and those nodes will have to go through a vigorous identification process before they can even be eligible to be voted on for the mainnet. This process is going to include providing information that can hold the host of the consensus node legally liable. This is going to secure the network in a decentralized way because it's going to be in the node's best interest to secure and maintain the network. Also, all nodes will always remain equal regardless of how much money the person has or how cheap their electricity might be. My final con is the whole Neo not being divisible thing. It is frustrating when you're trying to send a transaction of Neo from an exchange or somewhere else and you're new to it and you don't know how to use it like I was a couple months ago, and you find yourself in a position where you can't figure out why you can't send the transaction. Upcoming is the NeoX implementation, and it's a cross-chain protocol that's going to be developed by OnChain to run on the Neo blockchain. It's in the works and we'll likely see it going live soon. On the roadmap, I saw that it's due for probably the second quarter of 2018. Overall, it sounds like Neo still has a real lot to deliver on. They do have really awesome and ambitious goals, so I hope that they're successful. Based on the roadmap, this year is going to be a very important one, so I'm looking forward to seeing what they do. I hope I did the project justice. There was a lot of information to touch on. I kind of went into this video thinking it was going to be a little less detail-oriented than it was, but we can't win them all. Thank you everyone for watching. As usual, if you guys have something to say or you want to talk, pop on over to my Discord. If you want to support my channel and the work that I do, you can go over to my Patreon account and sign up there. I'll leave the link in the description. But otherwise, I'll see you guys soon.